On the menu is State of Origin Game 2. It has been a dramatic build-up already, so let's have a look at how it's all unfolded so far.
The Maroons lead 1-0. Another famous Queensland win. And they have taken the series opener.
Do you feel like you'll have the same 17 in Game 2?
It's a fair way away, so, realistically.
Now Murray limping. He's in trouble, Cameron Murray.
Medical staff will assess all our players, and outside of that, I think we're okay.
The arrow, he might have hurt himself.
I think it might be an ankle.
That's not a great look, is it?
No, definitely not.
We'll see what happens in a couple of weeks.
There's a problem in the middle of the field for Nathan Cleary.
He's grabbing at a hamstring there.
Well, this is a huge story.
You talk experience, you talk about the location. It is Admiral's home ground at the Broncos. Is he the right man?
My personal choice would be Mitchell Moses. That's just my personal choice.
Sick of hearing about it, to be honest. That's up to Freddie and the coaching staff which way they want to go, but I'd be more than honoured to put my hand up and represent the state.
Heading straight up the tunnel right now, Salty, so...
I'm hoping he's all right, and I'm hoping I'm all right too.
Have you had any updates on how he is?
Fractured jaw, so...
He's texted you, has he?
Yep.
Confirmed from the man himself. That is...
It was interesting, Tino, talking about it's a contact game and he got the better of Appy there. But there's also, there's due diligence. It's the second time he's done it to a hooker. He knocked out Reid Marnie a couple of weeks ago. It's a contact game, but there's also a duty of care as well.
The Bunnies will be missing Cody Walker. He's got a quad injury and didn't train today.
Our physio team and Latrell and myself will be very open with where he's at, and if there's risk, then he won't play.
I got to ask Bill. Tom Gilbert, right back rower, he's gone, mate. What's the process? You're looking for a like player? Who are you thinking?
Yeah, it's unfortunate, isn't it, Joey? Tom's been great for not only Queensland but the Dolphins this year, and it looks like his season's over with that shoulder injury. So, look, we'll sit down tonight and just work out a replacement for him. Obviously, Felice Kafusi, he won't play a game, but he'll be available. Jeremiah Nanai, he played on the weekend after being suspended for 3 weeks. So there's a couple of options that we've got, and we've obviously got Jai Arrow, who's on screen there, that will need replacing as well. He's done a syndesmosis, he's had an operation, and will miss about 6 to 8 weeks. So unfortunate for those two guys. They're pretty important for the Queenslanders, and whoever steps into those shoes will certainly have some big shoes to fill.
Well, that was going to be my question to you, Bill. Nanai, a few weeks out, but he had a really good showing for the Cowboys. He brings a lot of spark for you guys as well. Would you look at that, lean that way more to that edge?
We'll look at that, Ruan. I thought he played with a whole heap of energy against the Melbourne Storm last week. It was probably the most energy he's played all year. So it looks like he's done a fair bit of work in that month off. But, like I said, there's still a couple of games of footy to go, and then we'll sit down and work out what's best for this Queensland team.
What is it, Bill, that you look for when you know that you've got players who have gone down in Arrow and Gilbert, and then you are looking at their replacements? What do you look for over these 2 weekends of footy?
I think whenever I look for players or watch players, I watch their habits, and when they're under pressure, when they're fatigued, and what sort of habits do they lean on? And like Nathan would attest to, in Origin, you don't get a whole heap of time to think. You're more reacting and leaning on your muscle memory. So, if you can have those good habits in your game, when you get that fatigue in your game, and when you are under pressure, you'll lean on them. So, that's probably the most thing that I look for. But you got to think of the balance of the team. You got to think of contingency plans. We had both our wingers go off in game 1. We had both our back rowers go off. We had Ben Hunt and Dave Fafita playing in the centres to finish the game, and that's just not a one-off. You look at last year and the adversity that we had to face. So you got to think of those contingency plans and who can play where if something happens.
On Thursday night, we saw Api Coruscant go off with that fractured jaw. Tino Fa'asuamaleaui put on report. When you were watching it unfold, were you nervous? Were you anxious about what the outcome would have been?
Well, obviously, when I heard the injury to Appy, I felt for him. Obviously, Nathan's in the same boat with an injury, and I've been in that position. I've missed big games, through injury. I've missed seasons, and I understand how much it goes into getting yourself in a position to play, for your state and your country in big games like that. So I certainly feel for those players. The one thing I couldn't find is I couldn't find the illegal action from Tino. So I wasn't sure which way in the match review committee we're going to lean. Obviously, it was a pretty serious injury, but the one thing I kept going back to is that I couldn't find an illegal action from Tino. So, the match review committee saw it that way, and I'm glad they did.
Did you have your Queensland glasses on when you were watching that?
No, but I know you had your New South Wales on.
Too right, they're always on, Bill. What sort of game are you expecting in game 2?
Well, I think you always see a progression from game 1, Joey, and game 1's always usually a tough affair, low scoring, and then game 2 and 3, the continuity continues to grow, and the ball movement. I think we're expecting pretty fine track up there in Brisbane. I watched the Broncos game last night, and I thought the surface held up really well. They've done a great job with the surface at Suncorp Stadium. So, it might be expansive, it might be a grind, but whatever the game is, we need to adapt to, and we need to bring our best game. So that'll be our priority this week, and get that right and get our own backyard sorted.
And it's not just Queensland who have had some injuries. Nathan, can you believe the amount of injuries that New South Wales has had as well, including yourself?
Yeah, it's been pretty crazy, and it sort of seems like it's happened in the space of a week or two. It's been the same for both sides, but it's disappointing, but it gives other people opportunities, and I think they'll do a really good job, whoever steps in there, and looking forward to seeing the different people step in.
Some positive news though this morning. Liam Martin, he went off with concussion last night. It was categorised as showing Category 1 symptoms, but you're in the sheds with him. He looked to be fine, and it doesn't mean that he's actually automatically ruled out.
Yeah, in the sheds after the game, I was actually pretty surprised. He remembered everything that happened. He remembered what happened before that, all the game, and he seemed in pretty good spirits. So I think that's just Liam Martin and the tough sort of guy he is, and doing silly things like that, but he was in good spirits.
So the key to that is he's the CMO, the Chief Medical Officer at Penrith, and after 2 days, 48 hours, and that's one of the important tests they have to pass, make sure they haven't got headaches or anything that's come from the incident. So I spoke to Liam this morning, and like Nathan said, he was okay after the game, so hopefully he gets through that. Time-wise, it falls within the protocol, so he'll be right to play. There's also things to do with contact at training, and there's certain things that they can only do at training, so that'll all be supervised.
Does that impact, or does that hurt someone's preparation if they can't do contact, or is it you look at it and think that they do so much contact throughout the year, leading in for 1 week if they don't do contact, it's not really a big deal?
Pretty much.
All right, well, a number of the other injuries as well, for yourself not being there, do you look at who could come in for contention for you? Who's someone that, catches your eye?
Oh, I've been asked this. I've been asked this question a lot. Get Scotty in there. I'm not too sure. There's obviously great options there, and everyone that's mentioned is playing really good footy at the moment, which is the most important thing. So, I honestly don't think you can really lose with who you go to. Obviously, everyone's going to have different opinions and whatnot, but I think we're in a good spot where we've got good options.
Well, you've got a number of options. Does that sometimes make it harder when you do have a number of options to come in?
No, well, it just means you've got more better players in that position. So the reality is there's 2 games to go. Like Billy said, you need to cover multiple positions as well. So there's a bit of a jigsaw puzzle, especially when you're carrying injuries, bringing people in to make sure that, things that come up in a game that you can try to cover it as best as possible. So, yeah, 2 games, 2 important games. Cronulla going down to Melbourne, which is important to them. They got beat last week, and then Parramatta are sort of just trying to find a bit of rhythm this year. So we're watching them up against Canterbury on Monday.
And Regan Campbell-Gillard's returning Monday.
Yeah, Reg is back, yeah.
So that's obviously, if he has a really good showing, do you think he's done enough throughout the year?
Well, like other players, he's been out for 7 weeks. The one thing in his favour, I suppose, he's one of those fit blokes who, when they're going well, they play big minutes. So, just be watching, with interest. But, he'll be up against Davuta, and Junior. So there'll be some blokes in the middle there.
Latrell Mitchell, how's he?
They ran yesterday. South have been really good. Speaking to Eddie Farrer, they've been really open with communication and just talking about some of their players. So they've got a few players injured, actually, South Sydney. So they pretty much all ran to a degree yesterday, and then they'll also run again tomorrow. And we'll just liaise with them and see how they are. There's obviously a physical side and there's a mental side as well about getting up for Start of Origin. It's a big ask. So, you need to be going your whole body.
Well, speaking of going forward and big bodies, Tom Trbojevic was fantastic. I thought he was really, really strong for Manly. But in the centre stocks, Staggs has also had a really good couple of weeks as well. That also helps, having, some really good players around that centre position. Yeah,
depth is always good. It always helps. It makes for disappointment because, especially in New South Wales, there's a lot of conjecture who's playing, and they throw out a lot of possibilities for different reasons. So, the better they're all playing, the better your team's going to be, without a doubt.